There's a strange kind of loneliness that follows empaths through life. Not the loud loneliness of being abandoned, but the quiet feeling of standing in a crowded room and realizing nobody truly sees the world the way you do. While others move effortlessly through shallow conversations, forced laughter, and temporary connections, you find yourself emotionally exhausted by things most people barely notice. The tension in someone's voice, the hidden sadness behind a smile, the energy shift when someone enters the room pretending to be something they are not. And over time, this changes you. You stop craving constant company. You stop forcing yourself into spaces that drain your spirit. Little by little, your circle becomes smaller, not because you hate people, but because your nervous system can no longer tolerate emotional dishonesty. Most empaths don't lose friends overnight. They slowly withdraw after years of carrying emotions that were never theirs to hold. People often misunderstand this isolation. They assume that having few friends means you're antisocial, broken, or emotionally distant. But for many empaths, solitude is not emptiness. It is protection. It is recovery. It is the only place where their mind finally becomes quiet enough to breathe. And the truth is, empaths with little or no friends usually share a set of deeply misunderstood traits. Traits that reveal far more about their emotional depth than their social status ever could. The nervous system that never stops scanning. Most people walk into a room and simply see people. An empath walks into a room and feels everything. The tension between two strangers, the insecurity hidden behind confidence, the forced smile from someone trying not to fall apart. Their nervous system absorbs emotional information almost automatically, as if their mind was designed to scan beneath the surface of reality every second of the day. And this constant emotional awareness becomes exhausting. What drains an empath is not always conversation itself. It is the invisible emotional labor happening underneath every interaction. While others casually socialize for hours, empaths are subconsciously monitoring tone shifts, facial expressions, emotional inconsistencies, and unspoken energy. Their brain rarely enters a state of rest around people because part of them is always trying to understand what someone truly feels beneath what they say. This is why many empaths disappear after social gatherings and need long periods alone afterward. They are not being dramatic. Their nervous system genuinely becomes overloaded. Imagine carrying 10 emotional radios in your mind at once, each broadcasting someone else's stress, sadness, frustration, or anxiety into your emotional space. Eventually, silence becomes necessary for survival. Over time, many empaths begin avoiding crowded environments entirely, not because they think they are better than others, but because too much emotional stimulation feels psychologically suffocating. Small talk drains them. Fake enthusiasm irritates them. Chaotic personalities overwhelm them. So they begin choosing peace over constant interaction. And slowly, their social circle becomes smaller and smaller. But what most people misunderstand is that empaths are not isolating because they dislike human connection. In reality, they feel human emotion too deeply. Their solitude is often the result of emotional overstimulation, not emotional coldness. They retreat because their inner world needs space to recover from constantly carrying emotional signals that most people never even notice exist. They crave depth, not social quantity. One of the biggest reasons empaths often have very few friends is because they cannot survive on shallow connection for long. Surface-level interaction feels emotionally empty to them. While many people are satisfied talking endlessly about appearances, gossip, trends, or social performance, empaths instinctively search for something deeper, something emotionally real. They want conversations that reveal truth, not perfection, not status, not masks, truth. This is why empaths often feel strangely disconnected in large friend groups. Even when surrounded by people, they can still feel emotionally alone because their spirit craves authenticity, not noise. They are less interested in impressing people and more interested in understanding them. They pay attention to emotional depth, self-awareness, vulnerability, emotional intelligence, and sincerity. And unfortunately, those qualities are becoming increasingly rare in modern social culture. So instead of forcing connection, empaths quietly withdraw. Most people do not realize how painful fake interaction feels to an empath. Pretending to enjoy superficial conversations can feel emotionally suffocating. Smiling through energy that feels artificial drains them faster than solitude ever could. Over time, they stop chasing social acceptance because they realize many relationships are built more on convenience than genuine emotional connection. And once an empath experiences even one truly deep bond, ordinary social interaction starts feeling hollow by comparison. This is why many empaths would rather have one person who truly understands them than hundreds of casual acquaintances. They do not measure connection through popularity. They measure it through emotional safety, through honesty, through the feeling that they can exist without performing a version of themselves just to belong. But this depth often comes with loneliness. Because when your soul naturally searches for emotional meaning in a world obsessed with appearances, you begin to realize how few people are truly willing to be seen without their mask. And eventually, many empaths stop trying to fit into spaces that require them to disconnect from their own emotional truth just to feel accepted. Empaths have been emotionally burned too many times. Many empaths were not born distant from people. They became cautious after experiencing the same painful pattern over and over again. Because empaths naturally give understanding, patience, and emotional support so freely, they often attract people who are emotionally wounded, manipulative, selfish, or deeply draining. At first, the empath believes they are helping. They listen longer, forgive faster, stay when everyone else leaves. But eventually they realize something heartbreaking. Some people do not seek love to grow. They seek love to consume. And empaths become easy targets for this dynamic because they instinctively see the pain inside others before they see the danger. They excuse red flags. They tolerate emotional inconsistency. They keep trying to heal relationships that slowly destroy their own peace. By the time they finally walk away, they are emotionally exhausted from carrying burdens that were never theirs to fix. This is why many empaths become extremely selective about who enters their life. What looks like distance from the outside is often emotional self-protection. After being betrayed, manipulated, lied to, or emotionally drained too many times, empaths develop a kind of psychological hypervigilance. They start noticing subtle warning signs others ignore: forced kindness, hidden selfishness, emotional entitlement disguised as vulnerability. Their nervous system remembers the pain of giving too much to the wrong people, so they stop opening themselves so easily. And the painful part is that many empaths secretly miss connection while still fearing it at the same time. Part of them still longs for deep emotional closeness, but another part remembers how dangerous emotional attachment can become when placed in the wrong hands. This creates an internal conflict where solitude starts feeling safer than intimacy. Eventually, many empaths would rather be alone than repeatedly betrayed by people who only valued their empathy when it was benefiting them. Their isolation is not bitterness. It is the scar tissue formed after years of emotional survival. Solitude becomes their emotional recovery space. For many people, being alone for too long feels uncomfortable. But for an empath, Solitude often feels like the only place where their mind can finally breathe. After spending hours absorbing the emotions, stress, expectations, and energy of other people, silence becomes more than peace. It becomes recovery. This is something most people misunderstand about empaths. They assume isolation means sadness. But many empaths do not withdraw because they hate life. They withdraw because constant emotional exposure overwhelms their nervous system. Every interaction leaves an emotional imprint behind. Even brief conversations can linger in their mind for hours because empaths naturally replay emotional tension long after everyone else has forgotten it. And eventually, they begin craving stillness more than stimulation. When an empath is alone, their emotions slowly begin settling back into place. The emotional noise fades, their thoughts become clearer, their body relaxes. For the first time all day, they are no longer carrying everyone else's emotional weight alongside their own. Solitude becomes a kind of emotional detox, a quiet space where they can reconnect with themselves without interruption. This is why many empaths prefer nighttime, silence, nature, music, or long periods away from social chaos. Their inner world needs calm environments to recover properly. Crowded spaces, constant notifications, superficial conversations, and emotionally demanding people can leave them feeling mentally scattered and spiritually drained. So over time, they begin protecting their peace more aggressively. And the strange thing is, the more healing they experience in solitude, the less willing they become to tolerate relationships that disturb it. They stop romanticizing constant social access. They stop believing they must always be available to everyone. They begin realizing that peace is not loneliness. Peace is emotional safety. For many empaths, solitude is not where they disappear from themselves. It is where they finally return to themselves after losing pieces of their energy in a world that constantly demands more from them emotionally than they were ever meant to carry. They secretly feel different from most people. One of the quietest struggles empaths carry is the feeling that they do not fully belong anywhere. Even from a young age, many of them sensed the world differently than the people around them. While others ignored emotional tension, empaths absorbed it instantly. While others moved comfortably through social games, dishonesty, and superficial behavior, empaths felt disturbed by it in ways they could never fully explain. And over time, this creates a deep sense of emotional alienation. Many empaths spend years pretending to fit into environments that secretly exhaust them. They laugh when everyone else laughs. They participate in conversations that feel empty. They tolerate emotional behaviors that internally confuse them. But beneath it all, there is often a quiet awareness whispering inside them. I experience life differently than most people. This feeling becomes even stronger as they grow older. The empath begins noticing how normalized emotional disconnection has become in modern culture. People hide behind masks. Many relationships revolve around convenience, validation, or control, rather than genuine connection. Vulnerability is often avoided. Emotional honesty becomes rare. And because empaths instinctively search for emotional truth, they often feel emotionally out of sync with the world around them. So they become observers instead of participants. They spend more time analyzing people than fully trusting them. More time watching energy than listening to words. And while others may view them as quiet or distant, there is usually an intense inner world hidden beneath the surface. One filled with deep reflection, emotional awareness, and unanswered questions about human behavior. The painful part is that many empaths secretly wish they could be less sensitive. They wish they could ignore emotional contradictions the way others do. They wish they could tolerate fake connection without feeling internally drained by it. But they cannot. Their mind naturally notices what others overlook. And eventually, many empaths stop trying to force themselves into spaces where they constantly feel misunderstood. Not because they think they are superior, but because pretending to be emotionally numb just to belong slowly destroys their spirit. They would rather have one real soul connection than hundreds of empty ones. Empaths do not experience connection the same way most people do. For them, relationships are not about status, popularity, or constant interaction. They are about emotional resonance, safety, authenticity. The feeling that two people can exist together without pretending to be someone they are not. And because of this, empaths often become extremely selective with who they allow into their inner world. Most people chase attention. Empaths chase understanding. They would rather sit in silence with one emotionally genuine person than spend hours surrounded by people who drain their spirit. Large social circles may look impressive from the outside, but empaths quickly notice how many relationships are built on performance instead of sincerity. They see the emotional inconsistency, the hidden competition, the transactional energy behind certain friendships. And once they recognize that, superficial connection starts feeling emotionally empty, so they stop forcing it. This is why many empaths naturally outgrow relationships that no longer feel emotionally aligned. They become less interested in being liked by everyone, and more focused on protecting the peace they fought so hard to rebuild. Their standards for connection become deeper, not harsher. They begin valuing emotional maturity over charisma, loyalty over excitement, presence over attention. And this often confuses people. Some assume the empath is antisocial because their circle is small. But in reality, empaths simply refuse to dilute themselves across relationships that lack emotional depth. They know how painful fake connection feels. They know what it costs to constantly shrink themselves just to maintain access to people who never truly understood them in the first place. So instead of collecting friendships for validation, they wait for rare connections that feel emotionally real. Because to an empath, one honest soul connection can feel more fulfilling than 1,000 shallow interactions. One person who brings calm instead of chaos becomes more valuable than endless temporary attention. And once an empath experiences genuine emotional safety, they stop settling for relationships that only offer noise disguised as connection. The real reason empaths walk alone. At some point in an empath's life, something inside them changes. After years of trying to fit into spaces that drained them, chasing connection that never felt fully genuine, and carrying emotional pain that was never theirs to hold, they begin realizing a difficult truth. Not everyone deserves access to their energy. And once this realization fully settles into their spirit, the empath slowly stops chasing belonging at any cost. This is the moment many empaths begin walking alone, not because they have given up on people entirely, but because they finally understand the difference between connection and emotional survival. For most of their life, they were taught that loneliness was something to fear, that having fewer friends meant failure, that constantly being available to others made them a good person. But experience eventually teaches them something deeper. Peace has value. Protecting your emotional stability has value. Choosing yourself has value. So the empath begins separating from environments that require them to betray their own nervous system just to feel accepted. They stop over-explaining themselves to emotionally unavailable people. They stop shrinking their sensitivity to make others comfortable. They stop carrying relationships that only survive through their effort alone. And for the first time, they begin honoring their own emotional needs instead of abandoning themselves to keep others close. This journey often looks lonely from the outside. People may not understand why the empath became quieter, more distant, or more selective. But internally, something powerful is happening. The empath is learning that solitude is sometimes healthier than attachment without authenticity. They are learning that protecting their peace is not selfishness, it is emotional maturity. And perhaps the deepest truth of all is this: many empaths were never meant to belong everywhere. They were meant to preserve the rare depth inside them in a world that constantly pressures people to become emotionally numb. So when an empath walks alone, it is not always a sign of sadness. Sometimes, it is the first sign that they have finally chosen themselves. If you are an empath with little or no friends, there may be nothing wrong with you at all. Your solitude may simply be the result of seeing too deeply, feeling too much, and refusing to settle for connections that drain your spirit. In a world filled with noise, performance, and emotional dishonesty, your sensitivity became both your burden and your protection. And while walking alone can sometimes feel heavy, it also creates space for something rare: peace, self-awareness, and emotional truth. The right people will never require you to betray your nervous system just to earn connection. Until then, protect your peace.